Hello and welcome to the Tifo Football Podcast. I'm Joe Devine, and I'm now joined by JJ Bull the Bullet. Hello, JJ.
Hello, Joe.
Also joined by Jonathan Mackenzie. Hi, John.
Hello, Joe.
Wow. That's a twofer. John's back from his holiday. A delight for us. Steve Hankels is here in the studio as well. Hi, Steve.
Hello, Joe.
And of course, Guten Tag, Herr Stafford-Bloor. Wie geht's du?
Guten Tag, Herr Devine. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And I'm so well because I watched all the football this weekend, and we're now here to talk about it. Yes, there's what's coming up on today's show. We've got Arsenal, top of the league, after a statement victory over Liverpool. Manchester United beating a tough Everton team. We're going to talk about a few things that happened on the continent too, including Milan beating mid-table Juventus. Borussia Dortmund, Bayern Munich, a complicated clash. I don't know if it was complicated, but I didn't watch it. And of course, other things will be there too. So without further ado, let me tell you, if you like the football, you should visit theathletic.com/Tifo, theathletic.com/Tifo, where I believe you'll get 30 days for free to try it for free. That's wrong. But there's something like that. And you'll read all the wonderful pieces. What was your favourite thing you've read while you were on holiday, John? Because I assume you were checking in with work.
I've not read anything about football.
Have you not? You actually switched off, did you?
I switched off, yeah.
Lovely.
I've forgotten how to talk about football, so this should be interesting.
Great, okay. Seb, what did you read on The Athletic that you enjoyed?
Adam Leventhal's report, which I don't want to describe because I think you should all just go and read it. Very, very good piece and free. It's the paywall has been suspended, so please go and read that. It's an excellent piece of journalism from Adam about the stadium tragedy.
So Seb is referring to the events from the Kanjuruhan Stadium that we sort of started the show with last week. Adam was out there for a few days and has written a full report of it. As Seb said, it's free. It's not behind the paywall, so anybody listening can go and read that if you want. What we'll do is we'll pop a link to it in the description if you're listening or if you're watching on YouTube. But it's worth going to read that. Yes, thank you, Seb. Okay, well listen, without further ado, let us begin today's show. A statement of victory, as we said. Arsenal 3 to Liverpool. What enabled Arsenal to win this game, JJ?
They scored more goals than Liverpool, which is obviously a good thing when you're trying to win the game, but they they took advantage of lots of errors that Liverpool made. Liverpool don't look anywhere near as good as they were. But Arsenal are just playing a really, really intense attacking style of football, and they start off in the first minute, they go right at them from the very beginning. Liverpool can't handle it. They take advantage of the space that's left from this changing system that Liverpool have played, and then that's the good start. So they start games really fast. There's an article I think Art de Roche wrote. Where's your table going?
Just moving my table.
Oh my god, we're haunted. And so it's on about how they start games fast, and that really helps. But then I think over time, Liverpool, we did a video on this on Tifo IRL if you want to watch actual analysis with the tactics board and stuff. But then Liverpool gained control of the midfield. There's loads of reasons for it. But essentially, Arsenal couldn't get close enough to Thiago and Henderson, who were able to then, Thiago especially, run the game, and they got control of it. And at one point, Liverpool had 62% possession in that half. But Arsenal held on. They equalised. Obviously, Liverpool got an equaliser. It's to do with movement in the back line and balls going through the middle of the defence. And Gabriel and Saliba were getting split a little bit, caught flat, and the ball's going through the middle of them. But by the end of it, again, so they start strong and they finish strong, and that's how they managed to get that goal in the counter-attack again, like getting in behind them. And then in the second half, they keep up the momentum. Like I think they had a big team talk or something like that. It really went for the players, and they got them all revved up, came out.
They do that after every goal as well, don't they? It's quite interesting.
To do what?
They all sort of gather. It looks like Granit Xhaka is telling everyone after they've scored. They celebrate and then they have a huddle, and Xhaka says, "Everyone stay calm," and then they go back to the work.
Well, part of the thing that seems to have worked with Arsenal now is that they've got really good team spirit. They've got a good group of players who are roughly about the same age. They're a very young team as well, so they've got loads of energy. They all seem to share. They seem to get on with each other, which really helps. But they've got momentum and they're winning. Everything they're doing is helping them win. So that just builds and builds and builds and builds. And there's not much you can do about beating a team who's really full of confidence. And so they're just driving each other on. There's that real community going on with that team, and you can see like we just talked about a bit last week, like how the crowd seems to be really loud in Emirates at the moment. And then you've got Arteta driving everyone up, and like he's an avatar for. He wants to be in the pitch. You can see him. He's dancing about all the way through, really animated, and I think people connect with that. And that just helps them play. It just feels like it's a real good place to go at the moment.
John, Tomiyasu started at left back in this game. Kieran Tierney was available and did indeed come on a little bit later. But wasn't quite sure why that was happening initially. Can you shed any light on that, please?
Yeah, one of the things I talk about a lot when I talk about Arteta is his flexibility, the flexibility of the team that he's set up now. And I think one of the most interesting things for me about the game was that we've seen Arsenal play a number of different build-up shapes. But when it came to playing against Liverpool, they really pushed their fullbacks wide. We've talked a lot about the fullbacks being inverted whenever Arsenal are playing, but we didn't really see any of that. And so I think the general idea was to keep those fullbacks as close to the touchlines as possible, spread Arsenal's front line, and as a result of that, it just meant that Liverpool's press would be less effective, and I think it caused them a lot of problems. So I think bringing in Tomiyasu is probably in part to do with that, the ability to just sort of have these two fullbacks a little bit wider. I think it allowed them to sit a little bit deeper as well. You want someone to cover Mohamed Salah on that side
because he's right-footed, isn't he? So is that so that when Salah cuts inside, he can also come inside and challenge with a strong foot?
Whether or not they were thinking about that, I don't know. But I mean, it's an argument to be made, and I do like the idea of Salah cutting onto his stronger foot and then Tomiyasu defending on his stronger side. But I generally think that it's probably just to do with defensive solidity overall. I think that
Steve Hankey's making the point that he's very bipedal as well.
Ambidextrous, as I like to say.
Ambidextrous.
I think it has a lot to do with set pieces also, because it means they essentially have 4 centre-backs in the back line for when you're defending
you've got Ben
corners.
White on the other side,
Yeah, you've got Liverpool have Alexander-Arnold, who's great at delivery, Tsimikas, who's great at delivery, and Van Dijk and Matip, who are really good at getting their heads on the ball. So you can outnumber them for set pieces. It's really useful. And in terms of flexibility as well, with Arteta, like John's saying, he made a few key decisions in this game that changed things. So at half-time, so when Thiago and Henderson were getting all of the ball, basically their 4-2-3-1 is like a 4-2-4 really. And Klopp was talking about after the game, it was an interview, I can't remember his name, it was a really good interview, and he was saying how they're not playing the way he wants them to. The floor are playing in a straight line. They just have 2 different lines, so there should be a bit of depth between them, and they alternate positions and they swap and whatever. What was my point I was just on? I was just there.
It sounded so interesting.
Arteta did, yes. So Thiago was getting too much of the ball and controlling things because they had Odegaard. So Odegaard was playing up next to them in the pressing shape was a 4-2-3-1. So there was Odegaard behind the central striker Jesus, where they form a flat 2. What they did in the second half was change it to a 4-1-4-1. So Partey sat a bit deeper behind the 4. So you had Xhaka going tight to Henderson, and you had Odegaard going tight to Thiago, which is limited the amount of time they had on the ball, which then meant Liverpool were trying to play wide later on in the game. And so later on, he took on Kieran Tierney to make it a back 5. And I don't think it was purely defensive. At this point, he'd taken Salah off, Klopp had taken Salah off, and put Henderson further forward. And I think it's because Salah was just pulled wide the whole time, because you want to play Núñez through the middle with Jota through the middle, which means there's very little space for Salah to then go and attack through that half space. So he then ends up staying wide, is kept quiet with Tomiyasu, who has him kept in. Alexander-Arnold is deeper. He's not getting the ball down that right wing to Salah quite so easily. Henderson's sort of stuck in the middle. But later on, when they're trying to play wide and funnel everything through the wide areas, if you have wing backs, you can double up and get 3v2s in the wide areas. So you had Tierney, Xhaka, and Martinelli, I think, later on in that game, who were able to then double up. So Liverpool couldn't go through the middle, couldn't go wide, and then they weren't able to play the way they wanted to.
Yeah. Okay. Seb, let me ask you. JJ just mentioned Salah there being taken off with about 30 minutes left to play, which is quite unusual in a game that Liverpool aren't leading at the time. Do you think that is as a result of what JJ is saying and what we said about Tomiyasu before, kind of marking him out of the game, or is there something a bit broader to it? He's not been fantastic this season so far.
No, I think he achieved an amazing level about 12 months ago, sort of between that kind of October to February period last season. But then we're talking about kind of Tomiyasu playing on the left and having the benefit of his right foot. But how many times have you seen Salah go down a fullback's left-hand side and go to the touchline? And then, so like, it's not like he's not Aaron Robben. He doesn't just have one trick. And so when he's not doing anything in that situation, that's quite concerning. I think more broadly, I think there's something in how Liverpool are being trained at the moment. In terms of kind of, Klopp spoke through the summer about the challenges of this season, the unique ones because of the scheduling of the World Cup. And Salah seems, either by design or unintentionally, he seems stuck in quite a low gear. Like, there's still a really good footballer there, but it's operating at kind of 65% of the speed of usual and the intensity of normal. And I think it shows. Like, I think one of the most jarring contrasts is actually, if you look at Arsenal's start, and JJ mentioned Art's writing about this, that's the start we're used to seeing from Liverpool at Anfield, or have been for the last sort of 3 or 4 years. And Liverpool are kind of, Salah's kind of a cipher for everything Liverpool are at the moment, which is they are just a collection of very good players with a lot of their intensity stripped away. And I don't know, like the season will tell whether that's a kind of a powering down for the sake of longevity, or being able to manage a Champions League campaign and a Premier League effort, title tilt. But it was weird to see. It's very jarring, the contrast.
Yeah, you only get one touch in the box on a Sunday, and so normally his average. So I went through his touches per game to see if there's any difference in how he's playing. His average of 55.97 touches per game in 21-22, the last season, with about 11 touches in the box per average per 90. But this season he's having about 6 touches fewer per game generally, and then he's getting like 1 fewer in the box, so not really anything to read in too much. But in this game they kept him so quiet that he was only having 1 touch in the box. I think a lot of it really does have to do with Alexander-Arnold's deeper positioning, and his expected assists apparently have just fallen through.
What's the situation with Alexander-Arnold's deeper positioning? And also a little follow-up question to that as well. I mean, when Alexander-Arnold was taken off, it doesn't really seem like Liverpool have a backup for him, except Milner and Joe Gomez. Right?
Calvin Ramsey, Aberdeen superstar right back that they signed for a bit of money.
Why didn't he come on?
I don't think he's ready. He's come out of being injured. I'd imagine he'll take a little while. Klopp tends to take a little while with his players, especially young ones, to learn the tactical setup properly to be able to do that. And dropping him into a Liverpool team like this, if you're brand new, maybe a bit nervous, would be, you could potentially like damage the player, like dent his confidence if he's getting done in.
Well, I mean, speaking of dented confidence, I'm starting to feel very bad for Alexander-Arnold, because like I can't remember who it was, but I saw someone referring to the situation with him at the moment as like similar to what's happened with Maguire, like, you know, like where it looks like maybe it's now impacting his performances, because he was quite bad in this game. He made like a couple of critical mistakes which led to goals, but also the person, I wish I could remember who tweeted this, but the person who tweeted about this made the point that those aren't mistakes that Alexander-Arnold would normally make. It's almost like it's a kind of double down as a result of the negative criticism.
I think you overthink it, and people are going at Liverpool when they sense a bit of weakness. There's a real hunger to go and punish it, and so I think it dominoes. They fall a little bit like that. I think it's deeper positioning. So what they're doing is they're sort of building in a back three, keeping him deeper. When you think about what he's best at, it's playing these long passes and being able to create from wide areas or in the half space in the final third. You'll see him often drop into the 6th position as well. But if you keep him deeper, in theory, it might give him more protection, because you've got Henderson in front of him. You can come over and cover him in front. You don't get that much protection from Salah, but he's coming back a lot more in recent games, I've noticed, especially in the 4-2-3-1 that they're playing. That means that Tsimikas pushes forward on the left. So what you get is the back three of, say, Matip, Van Dijk and Alexander-Arnold will form a bit of a triangle, with the deepest player being Matip, because he's a right-sided centre-back. And then you'll have a player, normally Henderson, Thiago could drop in, or Fabinho could drop in to form a diamond. So you've got options to pass through the lines. Lots of teams do this, like Chelsea are doing it under Potter now as well. There's loads of things you can do with that. But if you sit him slightly deeper, you tend to have players not marking him as much, which means that when he picks up the ball, he's a free man in space. So he's like a deep lying playmaker, just wide, just deeper than he was previously. So he's not getting forward as much, so they're not leaving the space, because what teams are exploiting is the space between the centre backs and the full backs. And the goal that Arsenal scored, the first one, is Saka playing wide of Tsimikas, so the ball goes through the gap between centre back and full back, so he runs in, that's where they get back, and then it's not an error by Tsimikas, it's just a tactical thing that people know to exploit now. And in the past, Alexander-Arnold's been called out for it loads of times, but it tends to be something that's filled with it. But Arsenal know that, and then they're overloading that left side. Xhaka's always making runs on the left side. Another tactical, deliberate point made by Arteta is to have the overlapping left-sided midfielder, Xhaka, come over. So they're always getting wide of him. So Alexander-Arnold's stuck. You see the goal he scored, the first one. Alexander-Arnold's basically dealing with 3 players at once in front of him. He's surrounded, and they're doing it on purpose, and it's really hard to deal with. You need support from someone further up to come back and support him, so he can not have to cover too many, because any player like Paolo Maldini would struggle to deal with 3 players on one.
John, I mean, on Liverpool's formation changes recently, do you think we'll see them continued for the rest of the season? And is it fair to say that one beneficiary appears to be Roberto Firmino, who has played quite well when Liverpool have had that 2 striker system?
I think the question is going to be, why have they switched their formation around?
I
think the reason for that is because their high press isn't working at the moment.
Yeah.
The reason why they're constantly exposed is because teams are able to move the ball through them in the areas that they want, like JJ is saying there.
Yeah, Arsenal did that really easily.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think they are definitely targeting that area around Alexander-Arnold, because one of the things I've noticed that Liverpool are doing a lot at the moment is they're getting pulled over in the final line a lot. So they're going... They're always a man away from where they want to be. So you end up with like Virgil van Dijk pushing out to the left back spot. This was what we saw in the first goal. So you get in behind Tsimikas, the left back. Van Dijk pulls across, Matip pulls across, and they're now essentially playing the left back and then the left centre back role. Yeah. And then you've got Alexander-Arnold as the essentially right centre back in that situation, and then you've got two or three Arsenal players around them. And I think that the problem is that, I mean, that's fine. If you want to be risky in that way, that's fine. But the problem is that because they're so open in their press, there's just a volume of chances now or build-ups just going through those areas and then trying to hit on the far side. And I think that's the problem. So I think that the formation change is about, I mean, essentially moving from their 4-3-3, where with the 4-3-3, the problem they always have is, well, if you have a front three, you're almost sacrificing area in the wide areas. And so what Liverpool have been doing is they've been dropping their wider players, so Salah and Diaz usually, dropping them to help out with the fullbacks so that you're not getting overloaded in those areas. Yeah. And then what they do is they push out with their 8. So often Jordan Henderson will push out on a fullback rather than the wide player, just to stop those wide players getting pulled forward. Now it seems as though they flipped that because the 4-4-2 that they're now essentially in when they're pressing, or the 4-2-4 that it was ending up in yesterday, the idea then is that you just sit your wingers deeper anyway, and then you have an extra striker who can help with the forward press so that you're not quite so exposed in the middle and you don't end up with your 8s pushing out all the time.
Yeah.
And I think the problem was, as Klopp was saying, is that they were, the way that Arsenal were playing, because they were playing with their 4 in build-up and they were sitting quite deep, they were just pulling those wide players forward, generating huge spaces around the 2 in midfield, moving the ball into those areas and then getting in behind the fullback, because when the ball goes into those areas, the fullbacks push up, you generate space there, play the ball in behind, and then you've only got 3 defensive players all get pulled across, you've got space at the far side.
Yeah.
I was going to say, the other thing is that because they've bought, obviously, Darwin Núñez, they're trying to change a little bit what they're doing. You have to evolve constantly, otherwise you stay still, and you need to keep going forward to adapt, and people make you want to be less predictable is what you want to try and be. And so if you play Firmino as the 9, what he's done in the past, I think everyone knows this now, is that he just dropped deep. Yeah. So essentially you're playing a 4-4-2 diamond because he's the 10 with 2 strikers ahead, and your strikers are Salah and Mane. Now, you want to get the secret to being a good manager is getting all your best players on the pitch. The best players are Diaz, Jota, well, Núñez maybe there, and Salah. So it's your best 4 attackers. You put them on this pitch at the same time.
Ahead of Firmino.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I've put Firmino in there, but you want to try and get Núñez.
He's had a good season so far.
Yeah, he's scored loads of goals. He's had one of his most successful seasons ever, I think, at the start of it so far, like per 90. But you want to try and get Núñez in, and like you want to build his confidence. You're not rebuilding, but you're trying to get a new team. Like Liverpool, the second oldest, I think it's first team or squad, one of the 2. Yeah, the thing came up, and Arsenal's the second youngest, something like that. Yeah. So they're a little bit older, and when you want to be able to press and be energetic and brave, then you want to have energy and confidence and dynamism. Another thing, like when you compare the 2, like because Arsenal's got this young squad and they're playing brave, it's really risky football. Like they can easily get taken away on the counter, and I think it'll happen a couple of times this season. But like they were leaving their back 4 were like 1v1 with Liverpool's attackers. Yeah. So when you had Saka in the front line of the press, Saka wasn't marking the left back. He was going inside between the left back and the centre back, which meant that Ben White was pushing up on Tsimikas. That's really aggressive.
Well, I'm going to ask John about that in a second, because John can use his favourite phrase in football.
I hate Seb, Joe. What?
Yeah, that's not. Seb, before we do that, before we move back to Arsenal, Liverpool, I haven't got the league table in front of me, but I don't think I need to look at it to see that it's a bit of a sorry sight for them at the moment. I also know every time a new season starts and I like to say, can we call it already? And it's only October. Everyone shouts at me and says no. But at least with the form of City and Arsenal at the moment, is it already too late for Liverpool? Aren't they something like 10 points plus behind?
14.
Now? 14 points behind. Is it? I mean, have Liverpool lost the chance to challenge for the title?
If this was still last season, I'd say no. But I think the difference this year is that City's only real weakness a year ago was that in games where they needed a goal, they didn't have that traditional forceful number 9. didn't have a player that, even if they played badly, could get them goals by himself, and now they do. And so you feel like 10 points this season is a much broader gap than it was a year ago. Also, I feel like, I don't know, maybe this will be proven wrong, but it does feel like Liverpool's energy is being directed elsewhere. Like, it's one of those where I think Liverpool remain a little bit fixated on righting the wrongs of last season's European Cup. I think that's probably the trophy that they want to win again. And I think this squad is better equipped to do it, because I think this group of players is interesting that we talk about the kind of the range of options at the top of Liverpool's formation, because during their best years on the Klopp, it's been very permanent. It's been very set in stone who would be starting in which position and in what combination. And now it feels more like a team that you pick on mood or depending on the opposition you're facing. And I don't know, that to me seems a little bit more suited to knockout football, potentially, as the Champions League goes forward, and also as after the World Cup ends. So we'll see. But it's very difficult to see them becoming mechanical in the way that City are. Like Arsenal and City are playing sort of two different forms of the game in a way. Like, City is a kind of evolved version of what they've always been, whereas Arsenal is much more high energy. And Liverpool don't really have either of those things at the moment. Like, they're not Arsenal or City in the kind of like the challenger form, I guess.
Yeah, John. On Arsenal, there's a couple of things that I want to ask you. The first is, like, we can see their evolution. At the moment, it seems like clearly they're the second best team in the league. They're doing things like, the game management at the end of this game against Liverpool looked a little bit shaky, but they managed to get through with a win. That's it's kind of ending to a game that you might have expected them to concede a goal, a season or two ago. But given that they're top of the league. After 9 games, they've won 8 of them. We have to talk about them as title challengers as a result of that. But therefore, the only team to compare them to naturally is Man City. Like, how far off Man City are they? Like, where are they in terms of their evolution versus where City is, as Seb was just referring to?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting comparison, right? Because Arsenal are playing Man City style football, right? They're trying to do similar things, and they're clearly on that trajectory that Manchester City are already on. And I've just got FB Ref up in front of me, and Man City are plus 15, just under plus 16 actually expected goal difference, so looking good. Arsenal plus 10. Comfortably the second best team in terms of the underlying numbers, and that's impressive when you include the fact that they've played 3 of the best teams in the league, right? And
Can I just clarify that when you say the plus 16 expected goal difference, that means that when Man City against teams that they're playing, they're expected to score 16 goals more than concede.
Yeah, so in each game that Man City are playing at the moment, you would expect them to put up around 1.77 expected goals more than their opponent.
Right.
Which means that you're almost always going to be winning those games, right? Because you're giving yourself a decent chance of scoring more. Now, Arsenal are at 1.13, which is still massive. That means that if they played at this rate through the whole season, you would expect them to win their games by 1 goal, right? Obviously, variance comes into play and stuff. So these are 2 teams who are playing really, really high-level football. The next team down is Newcastle with 7.7, and they're quite comfortably 3rd place, actually. And then you come down to Liverpool, interestingly, although the numbers haven't been updated with the result yesterday, so they will drop a little bit. So Arsenal have gone from being, I think, a team who you would talk about as top 4 challengers to now, I think, being the second best team in the league. Yeah. Now, if it weren't for Man City, we would be obviously talking about them as like really good title contenders, and obviously anything can happen, but in terms of the underlying numbers, to me it's so hard to get close to where Man City are at. And so in many respects, like, this season has been the season where Arteta has really moved from one level to the next level, but there still are areas of improvement. So you want me to talk about rest defense. Now, rest defense is basically what a lot of these high possession teams are always thinking about, because rest defense is how you are structured defensively when you're in an attacking moment. So if you're a team who has a lot of possession, you're obviously going to be in the opponent's third a lot of the time, and you're going to be holding onto the ball, trying to generate a chance. If you lose the ball, obviously because you've got so many players forward in the opposition's final third, you are then likely or liable to be attacked on by the opposition.
You're vulnerable to counter-attacks.
That's right, yeah. So rest defense is all about how well structured you are to deal with those counter-attacks. And now Pep Guardiola has been, I always say this, but he lies awake at night worrying about rest defense. Like I have this funny joke with one of my friends where,
is it funny?
It's really funny.
Okay.
It's so funny.
We'll find out.
But this idea that, when Man City play against Man United and they win 6-3, and Pep Guardiola goes home to his wife and she's like, oh, great, a big win. We can go out for dinner tonight. And he's like, no, we conceded 3 goals. Because that's what he cares about. He cares about the chances that they're giving up in transition.
That's
and I think
the concerns of these elite coaches.
That is the concern of these elite coaches. And I think we've already seen Arsenal play against Manchester United and come on stock against them there. And obviously there was elements in the Spurs game that showed the same thing. So again, I think Arsenal were really good in the Spurs game, but I think that they gave up a few chances in those artificial transitions that Antonio Conte really wants his teams to generate. So this is the areas where you can have all of the possession in the world, but if you give up those big chances, they can cause you to come on stock. So I think that there's still work to be done in that respect, but it's the final boss, I guess, for possession coaches who are playing positional football to be able to get their rest defence sorted. So I think, Pep Guardiola is already there to an extent. Yeah, Mikel Arteta is on the way there. But so I'm always going to say Man City are the favourites. But
do you think we're going to end up with 2 teams that play the same and win the games?
The best way to play. It's really fun to watch. Yeah, Arsenal games are really fun to watch just now.
Do you think Man City are fun to watch? I mean, Haaland is fun to watch for sure. Do you think Man City generally are fun to watch? I don't find it that fun.
I find it really fun. It's really more fun in real life if you're in the stadium because you see all the parts moving around.
I've never seen them live.
It's like watching a computer play chess. Everything's just moving constantly. You don't even have to think about it.
Can you say that? I've never seen them live. Isn't that what you say with bands? When I say live, you know what I mean, right? I've never seen them in the flesh.
Yes. IRL.
I have seen them live because I've watched them live on the telly.
But it's different when there are people there. They all look so much bigger in real life.
Do they?
Yeah.
I think they look smaller. I imagine what I would look like next to them on the pitch. And then I think they all look tiny.
I remember I went to see Chelsea play at Stamford Bridge and Kurt Zouma is like the most massive boy you've ever seen.
How tall is Kurt Zouma?
I don't know, but he's a big lad. They just look so much stronger. Like I walked past Hugo Lloris in the mix zone and he's massive as well. He's strong. Yeah.
Kurt Zouma's height is listed in meters, and I don't understand them, so I can't.
It's on meters.
Anyway, right, there we go. That's Arsenal, Liverpool. A fun game it was. We'll have a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to discuss some more football. Okay, Everton won to Manchester United. Who watched this one? Who didn't watch it? Did we all watch it here?
Yes, I did a video on it on Tifo IRL.
Seb didn't watch it, so we'll come back to him a little bit later. Here's the thing I want to start with Everton, because in the lead up to this game, we heard that Everton, hadn't lost for 6 games, and also that defensively they were looking rather solid. But we were having a look last week, weren't we? And I think I heard this referenced on another podcast. I can't remember which one. I've really got to start writing these things down, Steve, so that I don't forget who
There's
it is.
There's only so much I can do for you.
To reference. Who was it? Can't remember. Anyway, it's a good show. I'm sure it'll come to me. But someone was saying, when they were talking about Everton's defence, that they were saying that actually where you would expect them to be based on their expected goals against is 17th. That's where they are in the league in expected goals against. Whereas actually where they are in terms of goals conceded, they have a very, very high record. I think they're in the top 4 for a very small number of goals conceded. So there's a bit of a difference there. The key difference was Jordan Pickford, who is doing an amazing job this season. And what's the goalkeeping XG A1?
Post-shot XG.
Post-shot XG, which means, John?
So post-shot XG looks at where the ball is going after it's been struck rather than before it's been struck, which is what XG is. So XG just looks at chances and said if you took those chances, most of the time you'd expect it to go in this amount of times, whereas the post-shot XG looks at where the ball's heading towards in the goal. So if you hit the ball like clack it top corner, then you're more likely to score than if you dolly it towards the
So if Jordan Pickford has a really positive score, that means that he's saving a lot of chances that would ordinarily be expected to be goals.
Yeah, he's overperforming his numbers. So
there we go.
Keeping them in games. Yeah.
So it's unclear what to expect from this game because on the one hand, Everton are keeping lots of clean sheets and preventing lots of chances, but also the goalkeeper's massively overperforming. What did you see from Everton's defence in this game, JJ?
Well, they were getting turned over in midfield because, Lampard sort of spoke to it after the game saying that they want to be able to play a bit more expansive football. Like everyone wants to play expansive, entertaining football, don't they?
Yeah.
Everton I don't think they have the players for it just at the moment.
I want to play dull football.
Do you? I want to play exciting football.
If I was a coach, that's what I would do. I'd play the most dull football and I'd see how long I could do that for before I was fired.
If you're trying to play possession football and make it more fun to watch and you're either passing too slowly or too quickly, as Everton are doing both of, you're liable to turn over the ball in midfield. But then there's some mistakes. Like Idrissa Gueye just gives the ball away for one of them. like having been given the ball straight to him.
Yeah.
I think so Everton had gone 6 games unbeaten in the Premier League before this game, and they conceded 7 goals, but
2 wins and 4 draws, I think.
Yes, something like that. But then so like the XGA, for example, expected goals against is 14.8, and they've conceded 9. There are 2 teams who have a worse expected goals than them in the league. So defensively, they're not actually that good.
No,
they've got a lot of players missing. I think through injury. I think they started the season trying to play in like a back 3. They've changed that to be more of a 4-5-1.
Yeah.
But like little errors, you can't really count for that. It's not Lampard's fault that Iwobi's tried to do a step over against Casemiro.
Sure.
And he's left his position, so he goes from the left side of the field
I
to
won't
the
hear
right.
anything negative said about Alex Iwobi, the
You love
greatest
Iwobi.
goal scorer. I just love Iwobi. Seb, I know you didn't watch this game, but did you see Alex Iwobi's goal?
I saw his goal, I saw his mistake, and I feel for him because it becomes like he spent the season sort of rebuilding his reputation. He'll make that mistake, and it's naivety. It's a player being in the wrong position, and you don't do that against a player that's got 1 million European Cups to his name as a holding midfielder.
Sure.
And
that goal, though,
it was brutal. I did think of JJ and you when that happened. When I saw it being reported on Twitter, I knew that this was coming.
He knew it as soon as he did it. He jumps up in the air. He's like, why have I done that? Like he knows not to do it. Because he's always been coached like heavily in how to play midfield, and he's got Lampard will be there helping him. He knows how to do that.
Yeah.
He's moved from being a wide player. He moved to right back, and then I think they conceded a goal almost immediately. It was Marcus Rashford getting in between him and the centre back, but it was off. No, it was a handball instant of the VAR.
Right. Yes.
I think the things
Steve
that
Henkel's has very helpfully put the list of Everton's injuries in the plan for us. Lots of defenders injured.
That's nice.
Yerry Mina, Mason Holgate, Nathan Patterson, Ben Godfrey, all out at the moment. Andros Townsend as well. So, defensively speaking.
Yeah, if you lose, like any team loses their best players or their important players, it makes it a lot harder to try and win. Yeah. A lot of their chance creation comes from wide areas. So Gordon and Damari Gray putting balls into the box, or even Seamus Coleman hooking them in, something like that, Mikalenko. And then you need someone who can either win the first ball, like Dominic Calvert-Lewin, always injured, or you need players pushed up to win the second, but they're playing a bit deeper. So there's quite a bit of depth between they're not playing a really high line. They're trying to impress. The first line's trying to press quite highly and aggressively, but the rest of them is a bit deeper so that they can then retreat and deal with it. They're very, very medium. Like we've known this about Everton for a long time. They spent a lot of money, a lot of players who are all right, and they're just a medium team, and they look okay. They're not. Lampard's trying to build them into something that he wants them to be like, but it's unclear exactly what that identity is and whether they have the players to do it. And there's nothing you can really do if all your best players are injured or you're constantly having to change your starting lineup, so you can't build any cohesion. And like United won this with mistakes that Everton made, same way that United conceded a goal with a mistake that they made. Yeah, there's some things you see from Man United, how they're maybe trying to be more like a Ten Hag team in this game, because it was very end to end. Everton were very much trying to be aggressive and make it like that Goodison Park, like I'm going straight at you and get the ball forward really quickly. And because it was end to end, you got no control over it. And obviously, what Ten Hag's wanted in the past is you get control of the ball, right, and you slow things down. So later in the game, they started getting forward to the opposition half and then playing the extra pass and passing it sideways a little bit. A couple of just those kind of boring like pass back to the same player situations, just to slow it down so then you can get into your rest defence. Sure, John would have liked. And then
he'd love that. So
just to prevent the counter-attack, and that's what they did. But the chances they're scoring are still Ole Solskjaer counter-attack chances.
Well, Everton medium team there. Yeah. Medium, coincidentally, my favourite level of excitement.
Wow, I've missed being away.
I thought you were going to say your favourite sorcerer to visit.
Medium.
Yeah.
Your favourite blogging platform.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's just an accurate one, isn't it? Anyway, it didn't go so well. Manchester United had a decent performance there, John.
I actually think they were quite poor in this game.
Oh.
Just following on. Just following on.
Do you
from
know what?
JJ
Can I say? Actually, I watched the first 20 minutes, and then I watched Grand Designs, and then I watched the last 10 minutes, and they looked all right.
Which did you enjoy the most? Was it the Grand Designs?
Grand Designs, yeah. 100%.
What was the house?
It was a long house.
Did they overspend?
Did they try and be their own project manager?
No, they were sensible. But my favourite thing about this Grand Designs was it was a multi-generational long house in the Derbyshire countryside.
Like a long boat.
It's in a long house, like that's the actual name for it, but it's just a very long house. Okay. And the land cost them 250 grand. The build cost them 900 grand, and they were doing it in order to move their parents in. But when Kevin McLeod spoke to their parents,
that's why they're building that long and not like a square. But
when Kevin McLeod spoke to their parents who were elderly, they were like, "Yeah, we don't really want to move move in. Plus me and my wife laughing so much, saying they're spending all this money. And their parents are like, I don't want to go there. Anyway, they did go there. They went there. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about, what are we talking about?
I don't know.
Manchester United.
The long house of Everton.
Parents,
Goodison
I
Park.
think.
Man United were poor.
Yeah, I'm with JJ. I think they generated chances through the opposition losing the ball and then being in a possession structure, which means that obviously there's lots of spaces to exploit.
The Man United way.
Yeah, and look, that's a legitimate way of generating and scoring goals, but I don't feel as though they were...
Sorry.
You're really quite proud of that one, weren't you? But I really don't think that's the way that they are trying to generate chances at the moment.
No.
I think when it comes to coming up against oppositions in their defensive structure, they're finding it much harder to break them down.
Let me ask you about Antony, because Antony scored another goal. He scored in every Premier League goal, every Premier League game he's played in so far. Ten Hag said some interesting stuff about him after the game. He said, obviously, he's scoring goals and he's shown he can do that. But, you know, he said when he watches his performance, he can see lots of areas for improvement for him. What do you think he's talking about?
I suspect probably that he's touching on that element that we've said there, that, you know, when you're coming up against teams who are going to sit deep and try and cause you problems, there's clearly issues for Manchester United. And it's worth saying, I think, that the Premier League is an interesting league because it's so valuable to be in it that teams at the bottom of the table are just going to do anything they can to just stodge themselves against teams like that, which I don't think you see in other leagues so much, because the financial gap between, say, the Bundesliga and the Zweite Bundesliga is not as high. So if you drop down for a season, it's not the end of the world. Whereas I think in the Premier League, because you get that massive drop down, you get teams who are just happy to sit deep and play in a way that can actually cause these sorts of sides a lot of trouble. Yeah. And so, yeah, I think when you have a player like Antony who you brought in, he's a marquee signing. He is supposed to be a creative player. I think he probably wants to see him generating more against those low block defences.
Casemiro, let me ask you about Casemiro, because I feel like there is a sort of misunderstanding about what he actually is and what he does. Obviously, as we've heard from John there, Manchester United under Ten Hag trying to do things in a slightly different way. Ten Hag wants them to build through as opposed to just chasing counter-attacks as they were doing beforehand. Casemiro, not a build-up player, and if anything, when in that Real Madrid team that he was so successful in, often they just moved him completely out of the way in order to build up. So I feel like it's worth clarifying what it is that we should actually expect him to do, because he's not gonna be, you know, Rodri.
No, well, he was part of one of the best midfield trios of all time.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's bad.
No, but Casemiro, if you look at the skill set, it's like Kroos and Modric. Modric is more the player who's like a 10, playing as an 8. Toni Kroos is just a definite 8, who's more like a 6 if you want to. And Casemiro is the anchor that holds it all together.
Yeah.
He's played instead of Scott McTominay in this game next to Eriksen. Eriksen's your player he's like the Kroos kind of player that can progress it, even though he's more like a Modric, really.
Yeah.
Then you've got Bruno Fernandes as a 10. You have to play him there because Bruno Fernandes is just not great playing as an 8.
Sure.
So you can't really play the 3 that maybe you'd want. But Ten Hag's teams have generally played a 4-2-3-1 in the past. Like he had Donny van de Beek doing it for him as a 10, or Tadic, stuff like that in the past. And so what Casemiro is really good at, and what he likes doing, he says, is winning the ball, because he reads the game really well. That's the thing he's best at, is reading it from deeper positions. He almost scored a header by getting in late on, so he's playing more as a box-to-box. But players you don't have to pigeonhole him as one particular role. He's good at doing that thing he did the Real Madrid team because it suited exactly what he's doing. He's just a really good footballer who's won 1,000 Champions Leagues, so like he's quite good.
Yeah.
And generally good players can play anywhere you want in different systems, and you don't build a system specifically and say, we need a player that's exactly this guy to go in here. No. Some people do. But generally you get really good players, it's Man United structure anyway, you get really good players in, then you build a system around them that makes absolute most of all their individual talents.
Yeah.
Casemiro's is winning the ball back and then springing a counter. That's what he's good at.
Yeah.
The thing is, I think that's on Antony as well. Paul Scholes said the other day, I think after the Europa League game, he got hooked at half time, I think, with Sancho as well, is that he said he was a one-trick pony. That's all he seems to do. He's only got a left foot. He doesn't really ever use his right ever.
Sure.
He's actually got many tricks. He's a many trick pony, but they tend to be tricks that don't do an awful lot. There's like a FIFA 5-star skill player.
Right.
Do loads of tricks on the wing and then have to pass it backwards anyway because you can't go past your man.
He has scored a goal in every Premier League game he's played.
Yeah, he has, but he's a decent player. Like I like watching Antony.
Yeah.
I've watched lots from Ajax as well. I really like him. But when you're playing against, he's in the Premier League now. It's not that's a huge difference wherever. He's played Champions League before.
Sure.
But you know he's going to go inside.
Yeah.
And he's not as good at like going past people as Iron Robin was, for example. You can be a one-trick pony and get away with it, like Robin.
Yeah.
Or like Stanley Matthews.
Sure.
No, he was a one-trick pony. And everyone fell for that. I've read plenty of Stanley Matthews.
Right, those people
analyses.
back in the past were so stupid.
Yeah, exactly. But you can block him. You stop his left foot, and you see what he does is he gets the ball wide. He's normally staying out wide. Dalot's slightly inside, and then he's having to pass it backwards. The times he's able to get in is when they're in transitional moments, and he's staying out wide first of all to drag the fullback away from the centre back. So there's space between, and then he sneaks in.
Sneaky.
A little sneaky snag.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Well, there we go. Is there anything else that anyone would like to say? I know you didn't watch this game, Seb, but is there any points you'd like to make about Manchester United or Everton?
No, I don't think so. I mean, that the Everton expected goals against thing is I find it quite frustrating because I think that I think you can have two separate conversations about how whether a team is defending well in inverted commas or if a team is just fortunate. I think Everton are improved. I think that's a fair summation. And yeah, the goalkeepers had to play really well, but then I think it's a little bit disingenuous to take Pickford's improvement over the past sort of year or so out of the equation because it's like
he literally
that period
is
of time.
better, and therefore that literally is what's happening because it has happened.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would expect Everton to finish the season or even go into the World Cup with the best defence in the Premier League. But I think sometimes there has to be a kind of a middle ground between acknowledging what's happening in the data, very rightly so, because it's not lying. But at the same time, accepting that Everton actually yesterday was it felt a bit disappointing for Everton, given their improvement and given how stubborn they've actually become at times, that it's that you'd almost expect them to get something from that Manchester United team. Yeah,
I would say just to finish two things. One, my favourite kind of Seb point is one where he says he doesn't have a point to make at the beginning, but then he makes one, and it's always good. Yeah. And the second thing is that I would say, just from a kind of broader perspective, it's quite good for Manchester United that they played badly and won the game. They obviously got obliterated by Man City the week before, but with the exception of those two games at the beginning of the season where similarly they were obliterated, they've played pretty well, and or at least they've got good results against teams that are difficult to play or difficult to break down. They beat Arsenal. They've now beat Everton in a game that, as Seb rightly says, Everton can be a bit disappointed coming away with 0 points. I think it's their performances and the way in which they are obliterated when they lose, it makes it very confusing as to how good or bad they are, because on any given weekend, they're either the worst team that's ever played football or they're good. You know, like they seem like a team that like could finish in the top four fairly easily, right?
Like a consequence of the discourse, doesn't it? Like there has to be a strong opinion one way or the other about what Man United have done, just because that's the nature of the club, I think.
Sure.
This has been Man United perennially, though, since Alex Ferguson.
Amazing players as well.
Really good attacking players, but then not the structures to really accommodate them, apart from in games where they're the underdog, in which case they actually can be quite dangerous on the break. And it still feels like we're in that cycle, and Erik Ten Hag is doing his best to try and drag them into, I suppose, more functional in other games structurally. But yeah.
I think I've been actually quite pleasantly surprised by Antony. I agree with JJ in the sense that I think he's quite a limited player. I think he's still a really good one though, and I thought that every time he would come inside against a Premier League defence, he'd kind of get lost a little bit because he's quite a willowy guy. He's quite slight. I've never seen him be kind of physically challenged, at least not in the Eredivisie, and I clearly haven't seen enough of his Champions League games, but I've liked what he's done. I like that he's running off the ball. I think that there are good things to work with there, but like Sancho before him, probably like Martial going back even further, and probably sort of the middle part of Marcus Rashford's career to this point, it's going to depend on supply. Like he's not a Robin type player, can get the ball surrounded by 2 or 3 defenders, and his one trick is so good that he can dominate those 3 players and create something. Antony is a component player. Like he's a really good one, but he's probably not he's not a give him the ball and let's see what happens kind of guy. He's a little bit of punctuation at the end of an attacking sentence, if that makes sense. Sure. And he's done parts of that pretty well.
But a young lad with space to improve as well.
Yeah, he's a really good player. He plays for Brazil. Like he's really decent.
He's not a Man United probably overpaid a little bit, but Man United always have to because of who they are.
Yeah. I think it's more defensively that you see improvements in him. Like you have seen in this game, he was coming back to help out the right back a lot. Whereas in the games where he's been hooked or when they've been absolutely done in, he's come back but too slow or not energetically enough. I think the problem with Sancho's not really creating stuff in the final third, but nor is he getting back early enough to help out in the deeper things, deeper situations that United have been in. And I think we talked about this maybe last week as well. Like some of the best Man United teams like ground out results in the past with players like Ji-sung Park, who would be playing wide, or like Tevez or Rooney playing the wide areas because they're coming back to help and grind out the things. Like Everton, sure enough, like they weren't amazing in this game, but they're okay and they're hard to play against. Is when you've got like Anthony Gordon and Demarai Gray like running at you in the wide spaces and trying to attack you, and Obi's going about or whatever. Then you need to have players who can help your fullbacks and help be defensively solid, who can then also do things higher up the pitch. And I think they'll see improvements going forward.
I would say, just to finish, disappointing to see Anthony Martial pick up another injury as well. It just feels like he just cannot get a run, can he? It's a shame. It's a shame. Young guy. Anyway, I've remembered what the podcast is that I heard that Everton fact on, and it is The Devil's in the Details by, who are those guys called? Aaron and Case?
Aaron Moniz and Case von Hemmen. It's
good. That's good, actually. Good. Go and listen to that. Odd that I heard it on there, given that that is a podcast about Manchester United, but I think it was in the preview of the Everton game that they did. Worth listening to. Yeah. Okay. For now, video viewers, we're going for a break. Yes, what a lovely break we had there. And for the audio listeners, thanks to Tony Jameson. What a great name. Tony. There was a lot of Tonys in the game yesterday, wasn't there? A few Tonys. It was Antony Martial. There was Antony. They combined for a goal.
The memory of Tony Hibbert.
Yes. My friend Paul Ansors tweeted me to say two-tone. That goal was a two-tone goal. Pretty cool. I said Tony to Tony. And then I started thinking about Jungle to Jungle. Do you remember that film?
Tony the Tiger?
No. What? No. Jungle to Jungle.
Tony Benn.
Had Martin Short in it. Tony Benn. These are... Okay, here we go. That's the two different... That summarises you both perfectly as characters, doesn't it? Your reference is Tony the Tiger and yours is Tony Benn.
All the other Tonys.
Seb, who do you think of when I say Tony?
Soprano.
That is good.
He's right in the centre of
Tony
that
Abbott?
spectrum then.
Former Australian
Prime Minister.
Former Australian.
Actually, you know what I think of is that scene in 24 Hour Party People where he's setting up his first club and he meets Mr. Tone because he's Don Tone.
Tony Wilson. All right, that's enough Tonys.
Yeah, Tony Abbott, former Australian Prime Minister,
Yeah.
also famously on camera on a news piece, ate a raw onion, like whole. It was I can't remember the context, but presented this raw onion, YouTube it, by a reporter, and just kind of leaned in and went like, the most awkward way to eat a vegetable that you could like imagine. So
a raw onion must be
that's going to make you
hard
cry.
to get.
Who?
Skin as well. It was every single layer.
A raw onion. Not if you're a Shrek. Shreks love raw onions.
Lots of layers.
Do you mean the character Shrek?
Yes.
They
Shrek.
eat.
No,
they
all
eat
of the
onions.
Shreks. You know, the Shrek race.
No, I think that's is that Richard, what's his name? Stuart Lee and Richard Herring. I think that's a Herring joke, is that when he says Shreks, he refers to them as a race. It's quite funny.
That is good.
That's nearly as good as my Pep Guardiola joke, that.
It is, yeah. I'm still laughing at that one. Okay, well, there we go. That's all about onions. And now let's talk about Serie A. AC Milan 2, nil Juventus. Juventus really becoming a solid mid-table team there, John.
Yeah, and the numbers back that up. They are solidly mid-table. They are below sides such as Lazio, Fiorentina, Sassuolo, Udinese, Atalanta. Those teams obviously been a little bit higher. Atalanta have anyway, but like very much mid-table in terms of the underlying numbers.
Yeah.
And if you watch them for any extended period of time, you'll see why, because they are really looking clueless under Allegri. Crap, yes.
Is it time for
is
Allegri going to be going soon? We thought he might be a few weeks ago. I mean, like it's worth pointing out the World Cup coming up, although Italy aren't in the World Cup, so lots of those players aren't actually going anywhere. Is there expectation that some teams might decide that's a good time to have a refresh of the coaching staff because there's a bit of time to get the new coaches in and build up before games begin again? Do you think there's any chance that Allegri is for the chopping block, or are they still happy to maintain?
It's an interesting one because I think he's one of those managers who there are sort of rumours that the club can't really afford to sack him, and so you end up with this sort of awkward situation where you can't really do anything because you're sort of hamstrung as to having the manager. I don't know any of the ins and outs of the finances, but
if that is the case, hypothetically, we don't know if it is, but I feel like we've heard that a lot recently. Is this a new thing? Was this happening before and we just didn't know about it? Or is it a thing where managers are being paid so much now that no one could afford to fire them?
I think it's probably a combination of that and the fact that the times are hard even in football.
Right.
It's a big old chunk of money that has to be laid out, right? If you sack a manager with a long contract. And I think I read somewhere that they have this sort of rolling contracts with some of the managers they move on, who they continue to pay them while they paying the other manager. So I don't know what's going on there.
Seb, do you like Fikayo Tomori? That's a question for you.
I do.
Stafford-Bloor!
I'm kind of curious about quite how good he is. Like, I feel like, so one of the reasons I watched this game, two reasons. I wanted to see Tomori play against Vlahovic, just because Vlahovic is sort of very quickly ascended to becoming this very complete number 9. Whereas at the weekend, I think what struck me is how rarely they were actually in direct opposition. I can't even remember Vlahovic having a touch in the Milan box. Obviously Tomori scored an excellent, well-taken goal, a little bit fortuitous, celebrated it as if he was really angry about something, which is always a nice celebration. But I think it's kind of descriptive of where Juve are, in that, like, you're number 9. You cannot examine any potential weaknesses in a defense, because every touch he has, and remember, Vlahovic is quite good at linking the play, but he's not one of those kind of like 9.5 number 9s who is actually also a little bit of a playmaker. His link play is actually quite formulaic and basic, and it has improved since he was at Fiorentina, but not dramatically so. And he spent most of the game 35 yards from goal. So I didn't feel like I didn't feel like I had the interesting time that I was promised by the fixture, is what I'm trying to say. And I'm still none the wiser. I think Tomori is a great player. It's just that over time, with people kind of, Milan getting battered by Chelsea in the Champions League, that was a confusing issue with, like, what his place is in English football, what his place should be in the England squad, these kind of questions. I think he's developed really well. I just don't know. I don't know the right context yet. It's confusing. But Juve are in trouble. Like, Juve, the sort of saving grace is potentially, Chiesa will be back in the new year. But after that kind of injury, and a player who is as dynamic as Chiesa is, he's not going to come back as the player he was, because it just never happens that way. You need 3, 6, maybe even a year to kind of hit a stride. And you've got too many players who you feel like, alongside the Allegri issue, there's players there you think the club would rather not have on their wage bill. And who we know the club was trying to shift over the summer, right until the end of the transfer window, weren't able to. And it's a little bit of a mess. They're not if you think of the very successful Juve teams, you think of their definition, and not just under Conte, but Allegri previously too. Like, they were mechanical and they had little bits of flair, but you knew what everybody was supposed to be doing within it. Now there were times when I was watching over the weekend, I didn't know what they were trying to do. I couldn't see the kind of attacking method, and Milan were far superior, which is kind of worrying.
Okay. Well, let's keep an eye on Juve to see what's going to happen over the next few weeks. Staying with you, Seb, Dortmund, Munich. It was Borussia Dortmund 2 Bayern Munich. Bayern didn't win again, Seb. I mean, I suppose that's the first thing to say. They're still third in the table.
Yeah. So Union Berlin won on Sunday 1-0. So they remain top. But so the legacy of this game is the controversy. So not even really arguably, I think definitely Jude Bellingham should have got a second yellow card. He made one reducing tackle on Jamal Musiala. Got the ball, but he got everything else, if you know what I mean. And it sent sort of Musiala skittling up in the air. And then he was guilty of a high foot on Alphonso Davies, which probably should have been a second yellow.
I believe Oliver Kahn complained about this on Twitter.
Yeah, so there was a moment at half, when Leon Goretzka was shown talking to the referee, clearly about what had happened and why there wasn't a second yellow card. And the referee is caught on German TV making that gesture. He's saying, well, he's ducked into the foot. And I probably agree. I think he probably did, but you do see yellow cards for that. But Bellingham, I love watching Bellingham, and one of the reasons is kind of his application in games like this. Dortmund's game plan was to create chaos, was to be aggressive, was to bring the intensity to try and nullify some of Bayern's obvious strengths. And truth be told, it didn't really work, because they went 2 goals down, and then Bayern were extremely careless. Like, there's one of the stories of Dortmund's season has been Anthony Modest's struggles. Hasn't done very well since coming in as a kind of he came in as a kind of reaction to the Sebastian Haller situation, and he's found it really, really difficult, and he's lost his place to Yusufa Moukoko. but Modeste creates the first goal. He misses an opportunity to equalise in about 86 minutes, I think. And you think it's terrible because it's right in front of the yellow wall and you can feel the whole stadium kind of sag with disappointment. But then in 95th minute, there's a long ball, which John will back me up on this because he's a big Nico Schlotterbeck fan. But how many times when a team's chasing a goal and they've got their centre halves in the opposition box, how many times do you see the ball break to a centre half and then do something stupid with it, like just hack at it or spoon it off for a throw in? Schlotterbeck controls the ball beautifully, hooks it round to the back post, and there's Modeste to score right in front of the ultras, and the yellow wall goes mental. It's absolutely wonderful. And yeah, obviously Oliver Kahn twisting himself into a knot in the stand was the kind of the headline image. But there was a really lovely moment where at the end of games, German teams, when they're at home, they go to their ultras to kind of acknowledge the support afterwards. And obviously Dortmund did that. And Antony Modeste and quite a few other players had their kids with them. So Modeste had 2 children. And obviously he's gone from zero to hero. And it's a really nice little redemption arc. But lovely. And also it's important because I think the Bundesliga gets pelted for Bayern's dominance. And, whenever Bayern win or Dortmund stumble, it's never short of kind of facetious comments directed towards it. So this was important. And it preserves also the amazing Union story. And it's just ridiculous.
Absolutely. Union played 9 games, won 6. They're currently top of the table on 20 points. Freiburg, another well-loved team by one member of this cast over there, John, a second with 18 points, and then we have Munich and Dortmund tied 3rd and 4th with 16 points each. It's quite close behind that as well. It's actually turning out to be a very interesting Bundesliga season, so we'll come back and discuss that more.
Can I have a special Freiburg mention for Kofi Kare, who scored his 3rd goal in 3 games? Like he's Ghanaian international who has now played in and scored in all of the top 4 flights of German football. It's a remarkable story. He was at St. Pauli until last year, signed for Freiburg in the summer, and he's a super player with really cool goal celebration. Does kind of backflips and stuff, which is nice.
It's worth saying that John has been aggressively nodding throughout you speaking. Then he's
quite rightly.
very much agreeing with what you're saying. Yeah.
No, he's a super player, and he was at he went to the Africa Cup of Nations with Ghana last year, or beginning of this year. Sorry. And he's going to go to the World Cup too. So someone to look out for because he's an excellent player.
Can I just say, Freiburg signed Ritsu Doan, Matthias Ginter, Michael Gregoric, and Daniel Kofi Kare for 13 million euros this summer.
Well, all together.
It's amazing business.
Wow.
Yeah.
And also Nico Schlotterbeck. What a man. Yeah. What a man. There are outfield players who, like further up the field, who wouldn't be able to do what he did for
the thing
goal.
Is, though, when you think about that as an investment, I know we've got our Freddo's barometer, but also you could have 13 Derbyshire longhouses for that much. And
think how far away you could get your parents with 13 longhouses.
26 sets of parents that don't want to move in with you. It'd be still like
there was actually a really lovely moment. So Christian Streich couldn't be at this game because I think he gave a positive corona test. Christian Streich, Freiburg manager, long-term Freiburg manager, cult hero, everybody's favorite coach in Germany. And so he had to watch the game on television, but there was a moment in his press conference before the game where he's like, I just don't know how to. Like, he didn't understand the channel system because am I watching it on Sky? Am I watching it on ZDF? Am I watching it on DAZN? So it was kind of like a befuddled Christian Streich, not really be able to keep pace with the modern broadcasting environment, but still getting
it's
a
like
point.
Your dad watching football, isn't it?
Yeah.
And being like, oh, can you stick the game on for me because I don't know how to do it.
Yeah. Still managing to get a point in Berlin.
Okay, well, that is the Bundesliga. We'll come back and talk about the Bundesliga much more, hopefully, this season. That's enough for now of the football that happened over the weekend. A few other things happened, though, that we want to talk about. The first one is the sort of odd situation between Casillas and Puyol, which occurred on Twitter. And I'm going to sum this up by saying, by telling people what happened if they don't know the story of what happened. This is what happened. On Twitter, Iker Casillas tweeted, "I hope you respect me. I'm gay. #Happy Sunday." Casillas then claimed his account was hacked. later, but not before Carlos Puyol responded to him. I can't remember exactly what Puyol said, but it was something along the lines of, it's time to tell our secrets to the world.
Our story.
Our story to the world. Yeah, there we go. Now, Alex Gajelski, who's the editor of The Athletic, wrote an article about this over the weekend. And there was just something he said towards the end that I wanted to point out here. He said that the Casillas incident hurt a lot of people and will have done nothing to make LGBT plus people feel like they belong in football. It's worth pointing out that Casillas was apologetic, said his account had been hacked, and of course he was, apologizes to any harm done to LGBT plus people as a result of the tweet. But I think, JJ, it just sort of like, it's just another example of, it's an indication at least that sometimes within like football culture, they still just don't quite get it. And also it feels like a step back after lots of positive stories so far in the last year.
I think it's, there's a lot of footballers, whether they're pro elite level like these guys here or even in Sunday League, who will take part in things which are supportive of gay footballers or anything like this, any sort of social cause, without actually understanding what it is they're doing. It looks good for them to sometimes be part of that bandwagon. So that's things without understanding the importance of what it is they're saying. Like, these guys are doing it without understanding the effect they're having on kids, not kids, and adults.
Yeah.
Like people who struggle to want to share who they are, or you know what I'm trying to say. It's I think misunderstanding the situation.
It's also like the sad thing about it is like then the responses to those initial tweets are kind of like filled with the confusion in the first instance, because lots of people are being supportive of what they think is a statement being, an accurate statement being made by Iker Casillas. There's also like an awful lot of homophobia which then occurs in the replies to that tweet. So anybody who is reading that is going to suddenly just be exposed to all of this like vile, horrible. And I don't know, I feel like it's just sort of, it's an example of maybe an area where just increased and more and repeated education around like what is and isn't helpful. Because I don't speak to the intentions of Puyol or Iker Casillas. I don't know either of them or what either of them would have intended. To give people the benefit of the doubt and assume that they're not trying to upset anybody when they do something and maybe have unintentionally done that. Presumably, you could make an argument there to say that like increased education around that would just prevent people from doing something like this, which, as Alex says, like does. But then they're grown adults, so they're 40 years old. It's not like a teenager making a mistake that they can learn from and get better. I mean, everyone can learn at whatever age. You can learn and move on from that. But these are people who should realise what they represent and how well seen they are in the world. Sure.
And the damage that can cause by trying to make jokes about that on that platform. Like you should just know not to do that. Yeah. Because it'd be very upsetting to people who then suddenly don't feel like they belong or aren't welcome because it's still a joke.
Sure. Well, worth highlighting again, like the positive stories that we've heard over the last year. Josh Carvalho in Australia coming out, Jake Daniels as well, plus the 2 or 3 referees in Scotland. Hopefully these sorts of incidents don't put a halt on that happening or people feeling that they're able to come out. But we wanted to talk about it anyway because it just feels like an unnecessary misstep and an unnecessary hurt caused there. Another sad story that happened over the weekend is that Brighton's Enoch Mwepu has retired, John, as a result of medical advice. This is very sad, isn't it? Because he's a fantastic player.
Yeah, sad story for a player just about making it at the top stage of football and definitely one for the future. But yeah, it turns out that he's had medical tests that show that he has a heart defect that make it very dangerous for him to play, and so he has retired with immediate effect. But he will be, I think, involved in the setup at Brighton going forward. But
he said he intends to have a role, which is quite cool, isn't it, Seb? Because we were thinking before about like other players that have, I mean, for different reasons, been injured out of the game fairly early, and then had. One way of looking at it is if Mwepu wanted to, like a decade jump on learning how to be a really, really good coach, like there's an opportunity in this, I suppose, as well, isn't there?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I can't imagine how emotionally difficult that's got to be to have to step away at such a young age, like having just found yourself like in the game, just reached the highest level of it and being part of it's got to be great fun to be a Brighton player at the moment, and to kind of, yes, Potter, but also De Zerbi's just, that's got to be an enjoyable coaching style for a player to experience, and then to deal with. I imagine it's much like a loss, like having to deal with a kind of situation which requires mourning or a response to sort of a bereavement in the family. It's got to be awfully difficult. So like first of all, obviously he needs care and love, and to feel like his self-worth isn't determined by his football career, because that's probably stage one, I'd imagine. Very difficult for us to relate, but you'd have thought so. And then like a player, what's really interesting about him is the way his teammates and coaches have spoken about him. He's tremendously smart. He sees the game quicker than a lot of players, and that bears out in kind of his midfield performance. He seems to process the game super quickly. So you'd imagine someone like that clearly has the intellectual capacity to impart his wisdom, his experience, but also to kind of learn new things. And if you can start learning a new coaching discipline, a new profession at 24, then for a footballer, you are going to get a head start. So probably a bit early in the day for silver linings. That's a bit of a trite thing to say, I guess. But hopefully there is an upside, because it's a horrible thing. It was shocking.
Yeah. Well, anyway, all of our best to Inak Mwepu. I've certainly enjoyed watching him over the last year or two, so hopefully everything works out.
Might turn out to be a really good coach.
Maybe he will.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be nice if
I'd
we
love
talked about
that.
it and then in 20 years' time he is, and we say, oh look, Mwepu is the Brazil manager. Yeah, it could
That'd be
happen.
cool.
That would be cool.
Or maybe he can lead Zambia to the World Cup.
Sure. Anyway, it was odd that we started joking straight away, but sincerely all the best.
Yeah, it's a real shame.
It's just sad, isn't it? Yeah. All right. I think that's everything. Is that everything, Steve Hankles?
I think so, yes.
Yeah, fine. Well, thank you, JJ Bull the Bullet.
Thank you, Joe Devine.
Thank you, Jonathan Mackenzie.
You are most welcome.
Oh, danke schön, Herr Stafford-Bloor.
Vielen Dank, Herr Devine.
Yes, vielen Dank. And thank you to Don, producer Don over there. Can we get a little hand from Don? One little hand? Is your little hand anywhere? No, there's no hands anywhere. And of course to producer Steve Hankles also. Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
That's right. We'll be back next week with more. And in fact, in 2 weeks' time, we're going to get a special treat. A bit more Michael Bailey coming back on... Come back on the 25th? Is that, you understand what I was saying? Yeah? You got the language? Just making noises now.
What did you actually say?
I said he's coming back on the 25th of October.
Who?
Michael Bailey.
Oh, right.
He'll be, I'm on holiday. So, he'll be, might go to Rome.
It's good.
It's good, isn't it? Anyway, that's the end now. Bye. Might actually go.
Pretty cool. I've been there. It's nice.
Or New York.
New York.
Haven't decided yet.
So when are you going to start spreading the news?
Spreading the news about what?
It's a joke about New York, New York.
Oh.